was the beginning of the format for World War II.
Amen. Yeah, that's true. Lisa with Betty's Brigade comes in and she asks a question that even though the United States could have had reparations in World War I against the Germans, the United States did not accept any. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, as far as I know. And having read history.
And yet,
I wasn't there. I was born in 1935. I'm not a perennial.
You sound like it, though.
Well, I had a rest today. I mean, I've been doing 8 and 9, 10 programs a day, and I only had 4 today, so this was a very restful day for me.
I remember when I was the only one on Thursday.
I get a lot of calls in from ABC, NBC, and CBS, and I do these 20 and 30-minute appearances, so to speak. I was on with in Hartford, Connecticut yesterday with Ellen Brown, the authoress who wrote The Web of, I forget, it's about the Fed and what they've been doing, sort of an extension of what G. Edward Griffin wrote in The Creature from Jekyll Island.
And that was a good book. Ladies and gentlemen, if you hadn't read that one, you better. Now, we're going to take a break here in just about 45 seconds, and Mr. Chapman, when we come back, there'll be a question waiting here about the strong yuan, that's the Chinese currency, and what it would do on the world market. We also have the question that what happened to all the money that the Europeans owes the United States to bring their own sovereignty back, and who owes, and how many of them still owe us millions, and yet we give benefits to them. So those are a couple of questions, and obviously the question of the day is on what's going on with this Copenhagen meeting, and we'll come back to all those questions here in just a minute. This is Drew Malone Reigns III. It's Thursday, the 10th day of December, 2009, and we've got Mr. Bob Chapman, the international forecaster. That's it, yeah, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday is gone. Don't stop. Think about tomorrow. And that's why Mr. Bob Chapman, the international forecaster, is on the show today. He doesn't want you to think about yesterday. It's gone. He wants you to prepare for tomorrow, to survive. And with that, Doctor, I want to give you the doctorate degree, Mr. Chapman. I've got the first question out the box is lifting the value of the Chinese yuan currency would hurt the global economic recovery and threaten even its own financial and trade health. What is your philosophy on that? And if the Chinese did do such thing, what would it do to the United States economy?
Well, China has, up until about 3 years ago, continued to devalue their currency by printing yuan and buying dollars and taking the dollars and buying U.S. treasuries. That's one of the reasons they have such a big position. And then since then, from time to time, they have intervened in the market and kept it at what they think is a reasonable level. The problem with that currency manipulation is that everybody else is doing it, and they're all competing with each other to sell goods to the biggest consumers in the world, which are Europe and the United States and Canada. And in the process of doing that, they have created an unfair playing field where the euro and the U.S. dollar have been overpriced in the market versus those currencies like the yuan. And it's not just the Chinese that are doing it. It's just virtually everybody. And there are exceptions, but almost everybody. And so what the Chinese need to do is allow their yuan to appreciate, but they won't do that. They have 30 million unemployed, and that doesn't count the people out in the rice paddies. They just spent $1.8 trillion since February, and instead of their GDP being plus 4.5% or 5%, it's plus 9 or 9.5 because they've artificially stimulated their economy, and they've created a bubble in the stock market as well as in property. And they have used the typical Keynesian, and that's a thought process of economics, approach like the United States does to their problems. And that's not the answer. Now, the yuan is strong. It should be stronger against the dollar and other currencies, but it's not because it's being manipulated. So if they were to let the yuan reach a free market level, it would be stronger than it is already. Not precipitously so, but stronger. And that's really what they should do, but they're not going to do it.
Mr. Chapman, we've been listening to the show with Drew for over a year now, and we would like to let you know that we have witnessed, and a number of the girls sitting at the table here with me today acknowledge the fact that financial letters used to say there may be inflation. Now we are actually seeing the fact that many of these people who write reports in financial magazines are actually saying something in the neighborhood of, quote, when hyperinflation hits. You have been the only financial advisor on any radio show, television show that we've heard that has always advised us that hyperinflation would probably hit in 2010, 2011, no later than 2012. Do you still stand by that show from 2008?
I certainly do, and it's interesting that you should cite that. And I think these people who are talking about hyperinflation mostly are independent like myself, because if you talk about that and you work for a bank or a brokerage firm or a corporation or the government, you lose your job, because they don't want you to talk about that. It's a conspiracy of silence, so to speak. But the Federal Reserve, at a private meetings recently, have told bankers that if they can't withdraw $1.5 trillion from the economy, we're going to have hyperinflation. They're trying to do that. The first thing they did is they're getting all of the banks and others who borrowed the TARP funds to give them back. And they wanted to withdraw the $700 billion in the TARP funds, which are loans, from the economy. Well, that would have got them about halfway there. And then they would have to use other devices to get the other $800 billion. Whether they would have got it or not remains to be seen. But now the administration has said, wait a minute, we want that money. We got to make jobs. We got to do this, that, and the other thing. It's another stimulus package. And so the Fed's in a position now where they can't use that money because the Treasury is saying, look, we need you to buy treasuries with some of that money, probably $1.5 to $100 to $150 to $200 billion. And on the other hand, the administration says, well, we want $400 or $500 billion. And so they can't easily withdraw the money from the economy, which would make this hyperinflation happen. They're stuck. The question now is inflation next year going to be 14%? Or is it going to be 25 or 35%? We don't know. We only have to wait and see how successful the Fed is, but it's not going to be good. And what is hyperinflation? Well, I think it's anything over 10%. Some people say anything over 20%. But the point is this. It's not going to be good. And now the Fed is under tremendous pressure because they're going to end up getting audited, and people are going to find out all of these criminal acts that they've been doing for years, going back 96 years, and what Wall Street's been doing, breaking the law, and the banking community. And the people are going to be very mad. And they're going to do away with the privately owned Fed. And it'll probably be returned to the Treasury Department. And at that point, we've got to find a way of stopping the revolving door between Wall Street and banking and insurance and particularly New York City, and the Treasury Department and other branches of the government. I mean, the people from the banks and the brokerage firms hold all of the important positions, and all of the people who hold those positions, no matter what administration, Democrat or Republican, doesn't make any difference. They all belong to the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, and the Bilderberger Group, and they all want world government. And don't ask me why. That's just the way they are.
I got three big questions here. Well, I really have four. The first one comes from the chat room. Does Bob see gold anticipating the devaluation and spiking up before the devaluation occurs? Part one. Part two.
Well, let's stop. Let's answer
okay.
that first.